We're going to talk about the golf course first here. So, yeah, this is Augusta National. It is sticky as they come in terms of course history, and it is going to be, as they say, a true test of golf.
True test of golf, a true test of the all-around game. I think there's definitely going to be some things that we're going to talk about. I mean, like looking at your model, strokes gained tee to green. I mean, it's a global stat, but it's a stat I've been looking at as of late, and I think it captures a lot of what we want to capture. But I see driving distance is up here to an extent. I like that quite a bit. Obviously, approach, we're going to need to lean on that. Off the tee, we're going to need to lean on that. Around the green is one thing, Rick, that I usually am lesser on like than the field. So, obviously the complete game is important here. So around the green is going to be really, really important. Putting, we see this in the model. It's kind of diminished here a little bit. And that makes sense based on what we've seen with prior winners and prior top 10s. So yeah, it's the global stats that are really important to me. But outside of that, I think off the tee distance and approach are going to be really critical.
Yeah, so the way to read this model and what this model does, it looks at, the last handful of years of every single stat that we have on the PGA Tour, and it has looks at all the results for each golf course, and it finds the types of golfers who have success. Driving distance ranks sixth, which means there's only 5 other courses on the PGA Tour schedule, which driving distance is more important. I could actually probably argue that if this was to go in one direction or another, I think it would become more important. We know they've lengthened this golf course over the last couple of years, especially this year, adding 35 yards to number 13. The way that they mow these fairways is opposite direction, so you don't get any rollout. If it does rain, which is in the forecast this week, it's going to be pretty soggy. You're going to have mud balls. It's just going to kind of like, this could play very, very long this week, Sia.
Yeah, I was going to say there's so many factors that are increasing my likelihood of tending towards picking the longer players. I mean, you mentioned it with the weather and the rain, the lack of a run out even when it's not raining, and just the fact that they've extended some of these holes. They've lengthened some of these holes over the years. So I don't think it's any mystery that length is going to be pretty important here. Does that mean we're going to, X out all the shorter hitters? No, not necessarily. But I mean, I'm definitely going to be looking at length, being able to score on the par fives, things of that nature.
The other thing, and we talked about this a little bit last night with Greg and Kyle, is that second shot, that approach play. It's kind of more closely tied to putting this week because you got to be on the right spot. If you put yourself in some bad spots, it doesn't matter how good of a putter you are. It's just like you're dead to rights. So they're kind of more connected this week than many other weeks. And then Sia, you already kind of nailed it. This is a place that's going to challenge you around the greens. A lot of tight lies, a lot of creative shots, a lot of hanging lies. It's going to ask you to tap into all of that creativity that you could possibly summon this week.
And I think that kind of plays itself into some of the course history stuff too. I mean, getting things on the proper level, on the greens, or I shouldn't say it like that. I mean, just even off the tee, getting it in the right spot, knowing how to handle the tricky stuff around the green. I think that really lends itself to people who have experience on this course. Now, I'll tell you this, with guys that have bad experience here, I'm not going to disqualify them. And so I know what's going to happen. We saw all the course history people, all those sort of chalky people in DFS really succeed last year. So, of course, when we look at ownership, and we can see on Rick Run Good, among other places, we can see ownership's already out. And it really lends itself to what we thought it would. The guys whose recent form is great, but also who have really been successful here. And so I think there are going to be pivots to make, knowing where the general DraftKings player is going to go.
Yeah, that's right. The ownership projections are already up and running on rickrungood.com. We'll talk about those and we'll start talking about some specific golfers. But first, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our partners.